So next year we'll have the same thing on inclusive growth, and I should add that I simply love those screening walls, so that's why we get so much set of videos going on, and you need to wait till the end because we have a special surprise using all the walls. Our next speaker is Ciara Byrne. She's an independent tech journalist who is joining us from Amsterdam, but originally, as you'll hear in a second, from Ireland. And the work that she's been covering, trying to connect, I would say, tech and inclusive growth, especially a work trying to get the, I would say, low social economic communities more engaged into the digital kind of world that we're living in. So Ciara, welcome. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the stage.
Thank you.
The floor is yours. You have the clicker with you. Fantastic. So I'll go down.
Welcome, everyone. I should have some slides up behind me now. I'm going to talk to you a bit about building a technology product for low-income Americans, which is something I did a few years ago. But I do have slides which will hopefully help illustrate the story. I'm not sure if the production team is bringing them up now or not. Okay. All right. Apparently, there's a technical issue, so we're going to have to wing it on the slides. Oh, here we go. OK. So they're here on this screen, at least, if not on the screen behind me. There we go. OK. So a few years ago, I got lost in the Bronx in New York City. And the South Bronx is the poorest congressional district in the United States. And it's lined with buildings like the ones that you see behind me. And in this particular area of the Bronx, there didn't seem to be any shops or cafes. There were only clusters of fast food joints around subway stations. Yellow cabs don't go there. There was a shocking number of people in the street in wheelchairs or walking with sticks. One old lady hailed me from one of these kind of windows on the 3rd floor because I think she thought I was a social worker because the only white people you see in this area of the Bronx were social workers. And myself and my colleague were trying to find this address using Google Maps. And the further we walked, the further away the address moved on Google Maps. So we were walking for miles and miles and miles until eventually somebody told us that the address didn't exist. We came from the tech world. And when the technology failed us, we really didn't know what to do. But technology fails low-income Americans every single day. The tech business has long ignored people who are on low income, and I think a large part of the reason for that is that, at least in the United States, if you work in technology, and even more so if you're a successful founder or investor, you're pretty well paid. And you simply know nothing about living on low income. And at the same time, at the very heart of the tech world, so behind me, this is downtown San Francisco, you have thousands of well-paid technology workers walking to work every day past thousands of homeless people. And obviously, there's something seriously wrong with this picture. So a few years ago, a group of people in New York decided to do something about this. And they created what is called Blue Ridge Labs at Robin Hood. The Robin Hood Foundation is New York's largest organization combating poverty. And Blue Ridge Labs was a new initiative within Robin Hood, which was going to attempt to make high-impact technology products for low-income Americans. That is households which are earning less than $25,000 a year. This is in a country where the poverty line is, I think, $31,750 a year. So they selected 6 fellows in the first year, and each of those fellows was going to put together a team and try and build a technology product, and I was one of those fellows. I always thought of New York as a rich city because it is the capital of the richest nation on earth. But in fact, 1 in 5 New Yorkers live in poverty. That's about 1.7 million people. 1.6 million New Yorkers use food stamps. 1 million working New Yorkers make less than $20,000 a year. And there's also a digital divide. So low-income households in New York City, 56% of them don't have broadband internet access. About 20% of them have no home internet access at all. So what became clear very quickly is that poverty is complex. It is a systemic problem, potentially an intractable systemic problem. And nothing we could build in 3 months was going to make a major dent on that. But what also became clear is that inequality is not just about income. A scarcity of money leads to many other forms of scarcity, of information, of education, of opportunity, of social capital, of time, of health, of security, and even of sleep. So maybe something we could do with a technology product was give people a little bit more of one of those resources that they were lacking. So I'm going to talk about a couple of the projects that have come out of Blue Ridge Labs. One of them is called Alice, which gives hourly workers a raise. So one of my colleagues in the first year is Avi, who's in the blue there behind me. And in the US, there's something called pre-tax spending benefits, which means if you're making $30,000 a year and you spend, let's say, $4,000 on childcare and $1,000 on commuting costs, in theory, you can deduct the $5,000 from your $30,000 and you only pay tax on the $25,000. So if you work at a company like Google or Facebook, you're often offered these benefits automatically by your employer. However, if you are the employer of low-paid hourly workers, people who work in coffee shops, in retail, in care homes, whatever, they often don't offer these benefits to their employees. The reason is because it's very complex and potentially expensive to set it up, and even when it's offered, there's a low uptake rate among employees. So what Alice is it's a software system which makes it really easy for employers to offer these pre-spending tax benefits at no upfront cost. It connects into their payroll system. And then instead of employees having to fill out pages and pages of tax forms, which means that often people don't do it, there's a conversational interface. So the employees get a few text messages that ask things like, do you have kids? What age are they? Are they in childcare? How do you get to work? Do you use a Metro card? Okay, in that case, you're eligible for childcare and commuter benefits. And then it hooks up to your bank account and your credit card, and it automatically tracks what you are spending on those things. This, again, is automatically deducted from payroll, and the result is that those employees in coffee shops, in restaurants, in nail bars, are getting more money in their paycheck every month at no cost to the employer. Another big success story from Blue Ridge Labs is Fresh EBT. And the Fresh EBT app makes food stamps go further. So if you're on food stamps in the US, as I say, it's 1.6 million people in New York City, then the only way you can check what your balance is during the month is by calling a hotline. And people often call that hotline maybe a dozen times a month. So what Fresh EBT does is it pulls down that information, makes it available in a smartphone app, and it also gives people offers from retailers who accept food stamps so that they can make their budget go further. It also has things like budgeting features, recipes, and so on. The whole idea is the 1 million users can make their food stamp budget go further. And last year, Fresh EBT raised $4 million in funding from Andreessen Horowitz, which is one of the top VC firms in Silicon Valley, and the Omidyar Network, which is probably one of the top impact investing funds in the world. The reason this is important is because Fresh EBT is helping 1 million people who are struggling in a grossly unfair, unequal society, literally giving them a bit more food on the table. In the case of Alice, it's putting a few more dollars in their paycheck every month. In the case of other technology products, it could be giving people a little bit more time, a little bit more opportunity, even a little bit more sleep. So I hope that one of the goals of Blue Ridge Labs is also to educate people in the tech business about the problems of people on low income. So I'm really hoping this will inspire people to build more of these products for low-income Americans and low-income in developed countries around the world, and also that people from corporates, like the companies that you work for, will support and fund these kind of projects, because funding is really an issue. And that's it. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening.